The handsome stranger. I never thought I'd see the day Princess Adaeze said yes to anyone. As a guard at the palace, I've watched dozens, no, hundreds of suitors travel from far and wide to try and win her over. She was beautiful, no doubt about it, with skin like polished ebony and eyes so sharp they could cut through steel. But she was also difficult. No man was ever good enough. Too short, too dull, too plain. She wanted perfection, someone who matched her beauty. Then he arrived. It was an ordinary afternoon when the stranger rode through the palace gates. His carriage gleamed like gold under the sun, and his clothes looked finer than anything I'd ever seen. But it wasn't the wealth that caught everyone's attention. It was his face. This man, this prince, was perfect. Handsome in a way that made people stop what they were doing just to stare. Even the princess couldn't hide her surprise when she saw him. His name was Prince Obiora. He introduced himself with a voice as smooth as velvet, bowing low in front of the king and queen. He spoke of his kingdom far across the great rivers. Though he didn't say its name, he said he'd heard of Adaeze's beauty and traveled for months just to meet her. And for the first time, the princess seemed interested. She smiled, she laughed, and before the week was over, she agreed to marry him. It all happened so fast. Too fast, if you ask me. The wedding was set for the next full moon. Everyone was thrilled. Everyone except me. Something about Prince Obiora didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the way his eyes lingered just a bit too long when no one was watching. Or how he avoided questions about his kingdom. But who was I to question a prince? So I kept quiet. The night before the wedding, I was on patrol near the palace gardens when I saw him. Prince Obiora was walking alone, his back turned to me. He was muttering something under his breath. At first, I thought he was praying, but then I heard a strange clicking sound. Like bones snapping, I froze. His body, it wasn't right. His arms stretched longer than they should. His spine arched unnaturally, and his legs bent backward like a goat's. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then he turned around. His face, his perfect, handsome face, was gone. In its place was something monstrous. Dark, hollow eyes, teeth too sharp for any human mouth, and skin that rippled like it was alive. I don't know how I managed not to scream, but I ducked behind a tree and held my breath. He sniffed the air like an animal and then stalked deeper into the garden. I ran straight to the captain of the guards, but he laughed in my face, said I must have been drinking. No one believed me. The next day, the wedding went on as planned. Adaeze looked stunning in her royal beads and coral crown, smiling at her prince as if he were her entire world. I wanted to stop it, but what could I do? I was just a guard. When they exchanged vows and sealed it with a kiss, the crowd erupted in cheers. But all I could see was the creature from the garden. There was much rejoicing on the day of Princess Adaeze and Prince Obiora's wedding. People came from neighboring villages and from far and wide.
to see the beautiful princess wed the handsome stranger. Kings, queens, princes, and princesses gathered to wish the couple well. There was dancing, eating, drinking, and even a court jester entertaining the crowd.
As the day grew older, Prince Obiora informed the king and queen that he and his bride would be setting out on the journey back to his kingdom. The timing was strange, as it was nearing sunset. The king and queen tried to persuade him to stay the night, but he refused. Just as the sun began its descent, the prince, princess, and the prince's guards departed in the golden carriage. It was a long journey. They passed several kingdoms familiar to Princess Adaeze, but they didn't stop. The couple didn't speak, and the silence grew heavier with every mile.
Just before midnight, as they reached the outskirts of a dark forest, Princess Adaeze noticed something unsettling. The guards were disappearing one by one. Eventually, only she and Prince Obiora remained. Even the golden carriage and horses were returned to their owners.
"Where did all the guards go?" she asked. "They don't belong to me," the prince replied calmly. "They have gone to their homes. But how are we supposed to travel through this dark, thick forest alone? Where is your kingdom, my husband?" Adaeze asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and suspicion. "My kingdom is just beyond this forest, my princess," he said. "Let us keep going. We're almost there." They walked in silence, the prince holding a stick of firewood that cast a dim light ahead. The forest grew darker and more suffocating as they ventured deeper. Suddenly, the prince stopped and began to sing in a strange, haunting voice. "Aye, aye, my people, I'm back. Come and collect the gifts you lent me. I'm very grateful. Aye, aye." Monstrous figures emerged from the shadows, their grotesque shapes illuminated by the flickering firelight. They began dancing around the prince and princess. Adaeze screamed and fell to the ground, watching in horror as the creatures took pieces of Prince Obiora's beautiful features one by one. His perfect face, his strong arms, his regal crown. When they were done, nothing remained of Prince Obiora's handsome appearance. In his place stood a giant, horned creature with glowing eyes and a deep, booming voice. "Welcome, my bride," the monster said. "Welcome to your new home." The creature grabbed the still screaming Princess Adaeze and dragged her deeper into the forest. She was never seen or heard from again.